Ethan.
Patrick.
It's getting colder outside.
It is. Yeah.
Beautiful white blanket of snow.
Yeah, it's gonna be a white
toward
Christmas.
the middle of December, you know.
Yeah.
Starting to see mistletoe, wreaths, holly. That can only mean one thing.
Is it mass market Star Wars release?
Yeah!
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 Now my life has meaning for the next 2.5 hours.
Thank God. Peace on earth and goodwill towards pores.
Yes, that's right. It's Star Wars, the movie that everyone's already done talking about. Yep.
Okay, so let's up front give a quick up or down before we get into any spoiler territory.
Star Wars, The Last Jedi. You've already seen it, so you know whether or not you're gonna like it. You saw the ads, you saw the trailer, you've already seen the movie 7 times now, 8 times now. You know what this movie is. Patrick, how do you feel about the Star Wars? The most recent Star Wars. You're up, okay.
I feel up.
Okay, cool. All right.
Now let's complain.
When I found you, I saw raw, untamed power. And beyond that, something truly special.
I've heard some people talk about this movie and have a few people that I've talked to have all led with the same thing, which is this movie started on a weird foot, where the first thing you get is Poe making a stupid intercom joke.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I guess that's another thing you should probably talk about the movie. Maybe this is something that's already been talked about and said 80,000 times, but the humor is terrible.
It's bad, Jim.
And it's all over the place. It is everywhere. There's a scene where someone is shooting at the Millennium Falcon and they go like this, "Man, they really hate that ship." They're gonna say shit, but it's actually ship. This is funny because that's a bad word.
Yeah, like they make a joke about like a weak cell phone reception or something like that.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
Or Poe rings into the Star Destroyer and like, "Hey, can you get me General Hux?" And then Hux answers like,
"Oh yeah, that
General
was
Hux,
awful.
I can't hear you." Like, at first I thought he was just being a shithead and I was like upset. But then you find out, like, oh, he was just trying to delay long enough for his hyperdrive to recharge, so he was just like a distraction. Like, okay, that's fair enough, but the joke is still bad.
Well, it's because they're playing to something that doesn't make sense in the universe. It's like, you remember, like, you know, this happens in the galaxy far, far away, but you know what? You don't have to deal with bad cell reception when you have your Star Wars Motorola phone.
It kind of reminded me of that great scene in New Hope where Han is on the intercom in the Death Star trying to like act like nothing's going wrong and he's supposed to be at that post.
What happened?
Had a slight weapons malfunction, but everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
That's a great line. And a line that is aged well, where I can't imagine in 10 years from now, like this joke about like going through a tunnel or whatever is going to be very good.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, and it leads with that, and then right after that, you get Carrie Fisher flying through space like the White Witch.
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
And those are the two first big moments you get, and they're both wrong. They both belong in a different, less serious movie. Like those two scenes would have been at home in Spaceballs.
Particularly the weird flight scene.
Yeah, that looked bad.
Yeah, that was not
Such
good.
a weird choice.
Time for the Jedi to end.
So I've spent much more time talking about this movie than I've spent watching the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Which is pretty much the case for this thing. Like the movie's 2.5 hours, but the amount of buzz around it, it may as well be a small arms conflict.
Oh yeah, it's on
for how much news there is.
Yeah, but we come in with so much, there's so much buildup and it comes in with so much baggage that it's just endless nitpicking.
Yes, exactly.
Forever.
This is only like fucking video 3,847. That's probably a conservative number. This is our review of the Star Wars movie. Okay, sure, whatever. Let's nitpick, fine. Everybody else has already done it.
You know, remember how the Empire plot structure was, where half of it is Luke goes to Dagobah to go train, and the other half is Han and Leia and the Falcon go do Han, Leia, and Falcon things.
Okay, and then this movie is half Rey trains with Luke, Finn and company go on a separate adventure and do their Finn and company adventure.
I think what I liked so much about this was how much of an inversion it was of much of Star Wars. Like Star Wars, for the bulk of its history, has been about this one specific family and how the whole fate of the galaxy seems to be bound up in this one father-son dynamic. But I wanted to lead by saying that this arc with Rey and her relationship with Luke and her relationship with Kylo, and how that all unfolds and the ways that it changes the Star Wars mythos. It enriches the universe rather than take away from it. It's a subversion that does not subtract.
Yeah, it's a net positive for the franchise and for the movie on its own.
Yeah, because you're making the galaxy has always felt small in Star Wars.
Well, that's like the biggest criticism, right? That the universe is actually not that interesting.
Let the past die. Kill it.
And what I really like about this is that Kylo is sort of the inheritor of that. He's got the same family dynasty problems that all the other movies had. The cool twist in this one is that his foil, Rey, who I'm considering who I guess is technically the main character of the movie.
Your attention sort of drifts. I don't know if it's necessarily Daisy Ridley, but that type of character, like that kind of protagonist, like the chosen one protagonist, is always sort of bland.
I like her a lot better in this one. And I think I like her because it's not a sort of chosen one kind of narrative, because they have that great reveal where they're in the throne room and Adam Driver says, I've seen into your history, I know who your parents are, and they're fucking nobody, which is cool. There was so much speculation after Force Awakens came out for the next 2 years. Who in the world could her parents be? Is she maybe a Kenobi? They both got the same kind of British accent. Is she a Skywalker? Who could she be? And I think the most interesting answer was always, she's nobody, and I'm glad that the movie seems to have leaned into it.
I guess my biggest takeaway from the film is that it is trying to be different. The reasons why it's trying to be different are maybe a little suspect, but the effort I do respect a little bit, right? So it's sort of challenging even the thematic, because the whole thing is just about family. Like that's the entire, and that's part of the reason for its success, I think, is that at the core it's really basic, like basic human relationships, like 101, and that's what drives the plot. It's something that, if you do get into it, you can get into that aspect of it, right? And with that, it kind of is sort of like removing this core piece, the central piece, who's supposed to be the main character, from all that thematic work. It's completely different. She's no one. The family factor doesn't apply to her. So in that aspect, it is a little bit inventive.
And I think if this movie were just that half, high marks. I would love it. I would leave the theater going like that was the best.
Yeah.
I would go home and tell all my friends. I'd write a letter to Rian Johnson and kiss it.
Well, so as they say, the devil is in the details.
Is it ever? Is he ever? What detail would you like to draw attention to first, my friend?
Well, there's about 80,000 things that don't need to be in the movie. And I'm hungering to talk about the editing, so I just kind of want to get into it.
Absolutely.
So
follow your heart.
Okay, I will. I will follow my heart. The first Star Wars is very well known. It's respected for, well, one, it made a lot of money, so it's respected by money-grubbing Hollywood types. But really what made it a success was its editing.
Even just in a visual sense, you get that great shot early in the movie of R2 and 3PO just wandering the desert.
How did we get into this mess? I really don't know how. We seem to be made to suffer. It's our lot in life.
It's not boring, but it's visually bleak, and that's used. That kind of thing is where Star Wars has always shined, is you have these big, you have these big broad strokes and these big, solid visuals.
Yeah.
And you have time to let the weight of everything sink in.
So it's kind of weird to think back to if this is supposed to be similar to the original trilogy more so. It's completely different now. It's not even close to the same thing. You have all these scenes in the original trilogy, people talking, dialogue, and it might be like kind of like really wooden, so it's not a lot of energy to it, but it gives you enough time to think about things and build. Because it's like, okay, what you're talking about, the part that you really like, the Luke and Rey and Kylo Ren arc and the differences between them, it's like, okay, that's really interesting. But also now you've got like these little nun creatures that are on the island, which is fine, okay, I can dig that. But then there's also this other like weird dark space there, and then there's this mirror world that's in this weird underground murky spot where like Rey falls into a hole, and then they do like the Citizen Kane shot where she's just like repeating herself over and over again, which didn't matter at all, didn't mean anything really.
No, but it was cool.
It's just like, you kind of lose the importance or the actual stuff that you care about in this huge mess.
Yeah, you could easily have cut 40 minutes from the movie and then added 10. It's hard to know who to blame for this too, because it'd be very believable to think in a different movie like, oh, the director had tons of ideas that he wanted to shove in there, like it was with Valerian, where clearly Luc Besson had a bazillion ideas and couldn't pick. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's that problem.
Well, I don't know. I feel like it can't be Rian Johnson, but maybe it is, because I really respect this guy. Like a lot of his work, I really enjoy. Particularly, he directed 3 episodes of Breaking Bad. Every one of those is the best episode.
He directed the best episode of Breaking Bad.
Yeah, and I really was a big fan of his Looper film.
Yep, I still have not seen that, but
it has like a really fantastic ending, which is kind of what I was expecting from this. That was the one thing. If I could take away that ending moment and leave the theater thinking like, wow, that was amazing, because the finale for Looper I really loved it, and that's what kind of made my enjoyment of the film like to the next level, to that next step. And I got that in this.
And then the movie kept going.
And just kept going. Like, okay, we had this big showdown. I guess this is the spoiler moment, really. So there's a showdown.
Yes.
And this is a classic Star Wars moment. There's a couple of these in the movie, which is like, hey, this is classic Star Wars that you've already seen, and then there's some new stuff. It's classic Star Wars. Showdown in the throne room. Mm-hmm. How many times have we seen this?
We saw it in Jedi. We saw it in Revenge of the Sith. We saw it here. So this is, I think, is the third from like a quick mental poll.
So Showdown in the throne room.
Yeah.
Yeah, this character, Kylo Ren, it's been conflicted throughout these 2 movies, and you're kind of wondering which side he's going to end up on. And he has the opportunity to kill Rey, and he's being urged to do this by his evil Dark Master, Big Bad, Supreme Leader Snoke.
Yeah.
And
we finally get to meet in person,
actually
not
see,
just
and he's
in hologram.
Dumb CGI monster thing that's really distracting.
But he's got a cool voice and does cool things.
That's right. Thank you, Andy Serkis. So anyway, got him trapped, right? So he's doing a little force thing. He's going to take the lightsaber and then cut her in half.
Yep.
But he's also spinning the same one for Supreme Leader Snoke, cuts him in half. Mm-hmm. So he does a betrayal, and then he's like, okay, let's join together. He does the Darth Vader thing. We'll rule the galaxy together. Friends instead of father and son, right?
I think that scene is worth talking about in more detail just because of how much I loved it.
Oh, it's great. So the composition, it's like actual cinema, is kind of how I felt. When I was watching, I was like, oh, okay, this is a real movie now. Great. Mm-hmm.
And one thing, I love the resolution to this scene too. They like talk to each other for a little bit, and they both try to encourage each other to change their minds, and they both end up leaving the same way they came in.
Also, what is your rating for the film?
7 out of 10.
I'm also going 7 out of 10.
Okay, I'm so surprised.
No. You are really?
No.
I mean, on the whole, I like it, and there's some moments in there that there are actual like cinematic pieces that I feel like, oh, this is worthwhile. And I caught myself in the theater looking at that too and thinking like, okay, this is something I will remember. This scene, not the movie as a whole, because the movie as a whole has a lot of problems.
Yes.
I guess it's just inseparable for me. The thing that I hate about the movie and about Star Wars in general is just like, it's not about the film. That's the thing I can't escape.
It's about the culture. It's about the enterprise.
Yeah, it's the experience of going to see a Star Wars movie. It's not the movie.
That's the trouble with Star Wars, is on the audience end, being Star Wars is a performative event. Like you can't just go watch a Star Wars movie and think that was pretty good. You have to like tell all your friends, I'm going to see Star Wars. I'm so excited for Star Wars.
When are you going to see the Star Wars movie?
Have you seen the latest trailer? I've seen every one of the trailers, and here's my exact breakdown of all the minute differences. Being a Star Wars person is more important to the viewers than actually getting a good Star Wars movie much of the time. And Disney knows this. So where on the audience end, Star Wars is like substantially just an identity thing now. On Disney's end, it is almost entirely a money grab. The people that I know who are Star Wars people who have seen this movie seem to not like it, pretty much across the board. And the best explanation for it that I heard was this, that this movie felt like, to the really serious business fans, like a kind of a middle finger. That Force Awakens set up a bunch of questions, like who is Rey's parents? And who's Emperor Snoke? And what's his plan gonna be? And, you know, that kind of thing. And this movie just pretty much said, fuck you. Snoke dies stupidly.
Yeah, that scene was awesome.
That scene was great. But like Snoke dies like a chump, and Rey's parents are nobody. Get used to it. And a lot of people who are serious business fans throw up their hands and go, what the fuck? You teased me with this mystery for 2 years. And it's like, and it's nothing? You're jerking me around.
I don't know, man. I think it's important to try to be different, and those were the things about the movie that I admire, the chances that they took to be different.
I agree.
So I'm certain that Disney will course correct, though, and they will attempt their hardest to be meeting the exact expectations of the audience walking into the theater. So
they'll retcon it.
whatever you think might happen, whatever the most obvious thing is for people to feel satisfied, that's what they're going to do now.
Our friend Mitch, I think, said it best. Like, what I've learned from these last 2 Star Wars movies, that if I were to make a Star Wars movie, I shouldn't make one that's too much like the old movies, and I shouldn't make one that's different from the old movies.